Yeah, yeah. Like speaking of messaging and positioning, like can you expand on that a little bit about, how do you actually develop the product positioning of messaging for AI powered hardware devices, and how, like, what are the key steps, and how are they different from like developing a positioning messaging as like software devices? Um, your thoughts around that?
Right. So I think that while probably most of the marketers will start from like the understand the market and the competitors. So define the market is the very first job. Like everyone will have to do. Like what is the market that you're a target? I can recall my early days when I'm working on the Android device in China. Android devices compared to the iPhone, I think that a big advantages or like highlight is that it's open source. It's compared to the closed garden approach of Apple. So for the first several generations, well, the first one or two generation of devices, you really have to think about who care about this open source platform, because it's not as like having the huge ecosystem already as iPhone. But for the biggest competitive advantage was open source, who care about them at the very beginning. So the understanding of that market drives us to target the kind of the tech savvy people, the developers first, because they are the person who will immediately adopt the product, because we know that developers love open source. So that is an example of how you define the market. And then you look at the market size and trends, and also external factors. For example, the regulations, policies in different markets. We're talking that when it comes to the consumer products, we're not just saying like it's going to be just launched in US, but in Europe, in Asia. So every market has its own kind of regulations, especially in the AI era, right? So we can see that Europe is like running a bit like faster than the US. So you can expect that if you are going to expand or actually start your hardware product in the European market, then definitely we'll have to study the market, the regulations in that market related to AI. So a lot of times we use the industry research as a reference to understand the market. Or like, I know that for many companies, including the ones that I work for, we'll create our own estimation of the market share, for example. We extrapolate the external and internal data to make our own kind of predictions for example, how large is the eye tracking market, or how large is the install base in the market. So that's how we understand the market and the competition. And then we'll identify the key benefit and differences. We usually start from like a broad overview of what could benefit the users. But again, like when going forward, when we try to get down to still the messaging, we'll have to focus on only a few things that really are the highlights and the differentiators in the market. We usually do the competitive deep dive to understand the differences between our product and the competitors. So as to like those areas include like features, pricing, positioning, and this is not a one-off monitoring of the competitors. We usually do that on a quarterly basis. But it depends on like which stage your product is at. You probably want to do it more frequently or like half in a year. But again, like targeting a broad span a spectrum of the competitors isn't a good idea, because that some of the indirect competitors, one day they will expand their product lines, they will get into your area. So it's always good to get prepared for that. One thing I want to share, how we actually identify those benefits and differentiation. is based on my experience working in India to understand the retail market. So I walked into a lot of Indian retail stores. I talked to the customers and also the salesperson. I feel like that is the first hand, right? So when they start like choosing the phones, you can observe how they start, right? Whether they start from asking advice from the salesperson or they just go ahead and what they have already been researched. So I feel like you can be very innovative of doing this research or in the process of identifying the benefits and differentiation.
That's really interesting. I actually have a quick follow-up as you were mentioning market sizing. I think, you know, like for software products, we can optimize, we can estimate, okay, here, like how many, you know, office workers or, you know, professional workers are there and what percentage of them use a project management software. Like there is a way to do market sizing. And then for a lot of the AI hardware devices, they're new. Right? Like who knows how many people would want a, you know, AI pen or and vice versa. So how are you thinking about market sizing exercise?
But that's a very, very true kind of a comment. I think that in our experience, it is really hard because unless the company voluntarily report on like how much I sold a device in the past quarter or something, it is really hard. The kind of the second to the best information would be from some of the report where there are like analysts doing a very kind of a dedicated work of talking to not just the OEMs, but also the ecosystem to get the best estimate of the numbers. However, they're not reliable at all. Based on my experience working at Tobii, I've seen like almost like 2 to 5 times differences in the estimation of like how, even for the numbers of something sold in the past year, right? It's in a positive or past 5 years, let alone like any predictions for the next 5 years. Everyone having a different multipliers and factors to look at. So I think that a lot of times it's a choice of your company. How do you believe the market will behave in the next few years? Do you believe that it's going to grow at the current speed? Then you just use the similar kind of multiplier or like annual growth rate to estimate the future. Otherwise, you can have your own numbers. So that is one way. Another is that usually in the hardware, there could be that potentially there isn't a software that is widely used, right? You can, if you have access or if you have a way of estimating or getting to know the exact numbers of how many users use that software in the past month, then you can almost estimate like what is the monthly active users of that device. So taking XR as an example, Valve has done a very kind of a good report on monthly basis of how many users are alive on a stream. So then from there, because they track the models of the AI devices, then you see like, okay, so last month, Quest 3 gets like 20% of the usage on Steam. So that is also an indirect way of telling you that, you know, is the market growing or declining? But you may not have the absolute number, but you can get a sense of like where it trend. Is it trending up or is it trending down?
Got it. So to recap a couple of things I hear from you, right? So basically the growth framework is mostly similar to software in terms of developing positioning, right, persona, and probably thinking about the overall the market sizing, everything. Is just the difficulty of right, getting the data takes longer from the research, and the accuracy might be lower because unlike software, where it's easy to put in for a test or waitlist or fake landing page, right? It's harder, much harder to do so in hardware, right? So